Welcome to the video. I am DeanoGTO, and today I'm looking at water tanks. Now, it's been a few years since I played this game last. I think it's been at least 3, but it could have been more. Um, Only reason I have come back to the game to take another look is because I saw the Water Tanks 2.0 update. But I'll be honest, the more I've sort of seen about it as time's gone on, the less impressed I've been by it. But I'm going to give it a chance when it comes out. I'm not really going to prejudge it. I'm just going to wait and see what happens. But I had a realization quite a long time ago, and it's one of the reasons why I stopped playing. The situation with World of Tanks is I was trying to play it like a game that no longer exists. So the the peak of this game for me was back when I was playing the E75 and gold ammunition was still paid for with gold. In that era, you could actually have a head-to-head fist fight with another heavy tank, and if you won, it felt absolutely phenomenal. It was so good whenever you managed to win one of those fights, especially when it was based off of your own ability. It wasn't just based off your teammates helping you. I remember there was a game I played on that American map. Which American map is it? Let me just quickly take a look. I think it's still in the game. I haven't checked in a while. I haven't actually seen it in weeks. Or not weeks. I haven't seen it in years, so I don't actually remember what it's called. A highway. That's it. I haven't seen this map at all since I started playing again. I played for a few days last week. I played just today this week. But this map here in this corner down here before they add the extra houses over here, just fighting this corner, held this corner off on my own against 4 enemy tanks. Goddamn, it was such an amazing like feeling to win that fight, because it was me alone tier 9 versus 2 tier 8s. I think sorry, two tier 7s, a tier 8, and a tier 9. So they had all the reasons to win that fight, but they just didn't. So it was just such a good game from back in the day, and that was like really what solidified me as a heavy tank player for the longest time. Now, these days you can't really do that anymore. It's not really a thing, unfortunately, and there's not really anything that anyone can do about that, because Wargaming seem to have decided forever that this is never going to be a thing they remove or rebalance. I really hoped they would go through and rebalance this, but they just never went through and did it. I mean, 4,000 credits per first shot. Like it's sad to me that this is something they just never wanted to fix. But what can you do? It's their choice, their game. Not really anything I can do about that. Plus, you also have the issue of, as time's gone by, the game has become more and more focused on mobility. So it means some of the big, heavy, slower tanks have really been left behind. And you're kind of left in a situation where, like, yeah, they're still good in very specific circumstances, but how often do those circumstances realistically come up? It's just a case of like they've kind of put themselves between a rock and a hard place with the way the game has changed. So we still have like 1,000 meter maps, I believe it is, and there's another thing, by the way. There's been 3 maps I can see that are different from when I stopped playing. If it's been 3 years, that means 1 map per year. But I think it's longer than that, so that means 3 maps inside of however long the time period is. And I know there's supposedly a new map coming with 2.0, but that's not a good ratio. That is quite a bad ratio, if you were to ask me. Like, that's concerning. Only real way I can put that. But there's actually been some other things I've noticed just when looking through the tech trees, and this is something which really frustrated me whenever I noticed this. So, certain branches or certain tech trees have a gun that holds the tech tree together. For the Germans, it was the 88mm L71, the King Tiger's stock gun. This gun was used across almost all of the tech lines in some shape or form. I believe it's the base gun on this. Oh no, it's not the base gun, but it's one of the upgradable guns on this. It's on the E50, it's on the Panther II, it's on the Tiger P, it's on the 4502A. It's not on this thing, but it basically carries the tech tree. For some unknown reason, they have made the Tiger P have its own version of the same gun with exactly the same stats, exactly the same weight, exactly the same everything. And then you look at the Tiger 1, and the Tiger 1 gets exactly the same gun, but with 40 more alpha damage just for free. Then if you go to the Panther 2 gets another version of this gun, which is different again somehow. What are they playing at? Why have they done that? Why did the Tiger P get stuck with a gun that no other tank uses, even though it's the same gun? It doesn't make any sense. There's so many things which I've noticed just in my brief time looking at the game again that I've just gone and looked at and gone, why? What? What do you mean? But one thing I suppose I do have to mention just in the background is Wargaming are doing a giveaway for like a tech tree line when World of Tanks 2.0 comes out. So it means if you want a tech tree up to tier 10, you can just pick it and they'll give you all the vehicles related to it. Quite cool. Quite an interesting idea. However, that does come with some drawbacks, but we'll see how that works out in the future. You could end up with a whole bunch of people who have no idea what they're doing, playing a mouse at tier 10 and then being put off of the game because it's not what they expected it to be. Because that's one thing which I would argue is kind of lacking in World of Tanks now, is the fantasy of a super heavy tank isn't really what people are getting. The idea, the concept of it, isn't exactly what you're getting when you get to it anymore. Now, when I played the E75 back in the day, it was exactly what you wanted. It was exactly what you wanted whenever you were playing through the game. It was such a great experience. But nowadays, it's just not the same. Like, pretty much you're better off in every circumstance these days with like an IS-7, because the IS-7 just has the unbreakable turret. And even though the armor values don't look that good, the shape of the turret just makes it so strong. And then you also have things like the WZ-111-5A. Yes, it has cupolas, but the cupolas, when you're using your gun depression, they're kind of negated as a problem. But I'll be honest, when it comes to the free tech tree line, I actually don't even know which tech tree line people should actually pick. Because it's been so long that I've been out of the loop, I don't know what is considered good and what's considered bad anymore. And honestly, I've just thought about like just picking, and I know this is going to sound heretical, but I've been thinking about just picking this line just so that I can have the German tech tree 100% complete. Because the only vehicle I'm missing otherwise is the Rheinmetall Panzerwagen. And I mean, that wouldn't be too difficult to unlock. Yes, I know there's tier 11s coming out. There's the tier 11 for the mouse, tier 11 for the Rheinmetall Panzerwagen. But I'm pretty confident I can go through and upgrade those and get those unlocked. Whereas I'm never going to play the SPGs. The Americans actually got the tier 9 on them, but god, the SPGs depressed the hell out of me. Although looking at that again, I guess I could technically choose the secondary American heavy tank line as my choice, because if I'm not that far away from this, I could in theory just go through and finish the grind on that, and then that would be the American tech tree line fully complete. But who knows? So what way I will go with it, because it's very difficult to really make a decision on that right now. Yeah, but when it comes to the game in general, I've sort of got a bit sidetracked. The game feels very similar to what I remember it feeling like, but that's not necessarily all a good thing. As I said, the premium ammunition still bothers me. The fact I was playing the Mosin. Now, I'm pretty confident most people will know what the Mosin is. Or, sorry, no, not the Mosin, Mauerbrecher. I said the wrong one. But if I go Germany, tier 8, heavy tank, and go to the Mauerbrecher, I was playing this thing against an Object 430U. Object 430U is a tier 10 medium tank. Very, very powerful one at that. And for some bizarre reason that I can't quite get my head around, it was firing full gold at me when I was driving a Mauerbrecher. This thing's armor at tier 8 is okay. And that's being generous because it does have a bin on top of it that is, well, a major weak point that is pretty much how lower tiers deal with this thing. Because I think they were more concerned about making this thing balanced than the actual tier 8 for the German line, the VK 100.1p. But it's just a case of like, well, I can get it, like, fair enough. You want to put a weak point on a tank, fair enough. But it's just a case of a tier 10 firing premium rounds at tier 8 just made me just feel depressed. I'm not gonna be honest with you. Like, I can't understand why they'd be firing gold rounds at a tier 8. It's just, the only thing I can think of is they're running complete gold build. There's no standard armor piercing rounds in their build whatsoever, which to me is just like a case of like, seriously. Like, I've recently come to accept that the game is not what I remember it being from back in the day. So it's just a case of like, I should just adapt to the way the game is now. I shouldn't try to play the game as if it's the game I remember from back in the day. That's just not something that's realistic to do. Like, if you're trying to do that, you're just going to drive yourself insane. So why would you bother? So personally, I don't see a reason to go through and try to play the game like that anymore. I'm going to try and just play the game as it is now. Which unfortunately means like the heavy tanks just don't feel as relevant as they used to. The only ones that really feel relevant are the ones with speeds above 30. Because if you're lower than 30 kilometers an hour, you're going to struggle quite a lot to really get to position, to really like make an impact on battles. So it's just kind of a case of, I never actually unlocked this thing. I'm surprised because I actually was really excited about this tank. But yeah, like if you can't do 30 kilometers an hour, you're kind of screwed because you just can't keep up with how quick the battles are nowadays. When the battles were much longer and took much more time to play out, back in, let's go back, like I said, to say 2016, it was fine having a vehicle that was slower to get to position, slower to make an impact, because the battles were long enough to justify playing that sort of vehicle. But nowadays, it just doesn't feel like that's the case anymore. But yeah, instead of being like completely like doom and gloom about the game, I'm going to give it a try when World of Tanks 2.0 comes out. But I want to kind of make this video just expressing my current opinions on the game before it releases. And I'll be here to see how it feels when the World of Tanks 2.0 update actually releases, which I believe is tomorrow at this point. And yeah, I'll see what decisions I make in terms of what free tier 10 line I choose, and see what happens in that regard. But yeah, hopefully you enjoyed this video. Wasn't really too much gameplay or anything like that in it. It was mainly just me ranting on some of the problems I have with the game. But I'll be curious to see how things move forward. I just hope that they are aware, and this is probably one of the main things I should have stressed earlier. I hope that they are aware that a lot of the problems that push people away from this game back in the day are still present. And if they think that people are going to stick around just because 2.0 came out, I don't think that's a particularly wise way of looking at things, because if you're putting yourself in the position where you're expecting people to continue playing, even just returning players, they're going to remember what frustrated them back in the day, very early on. The sort of rose-tinted glasses will come off, and then they will stop playing. What I really think World of Tanks needs to do is they need to address the core problems with the way the game plays right now as it stands. And those problems, I would honestly argue, are gold ammunition, artillery, and honestly, I would argue medium tanks being too strong. So, from the games I've played, each game I've played recently has been dominated by a medium tank. There really hasn't been many games I've seen where the heavies have actually really had any sort of chance to really compete. And you also have the issue of medium tanks, the view ranges I think are just too high. I think if you wanted to make light tanks more relevant in this game, the maximum view range any medium tank should ever have is 390 meters. I think if you go higher than that, I think you're compromising what light tanks are, which is why they've sort of tried to go a different direction with balancing the lights by giving them more health, but they basically just made them faster medium tanks, and they're not really that much faster, because that's the other thing as well. Medium tanks have just continued to get faster and faster, so it just kind of becomes a case of, why would you play the light tank if you can play the medium tank, have the extra armor, have the extra alpha damage, have the extra penetration, have the extra rate of fire? Now, I don't begrudge medium tanks their rate of fire or their alpha damage or anything like that, so the penetration, that's all fine. I just don't think they should be able to do every role on the battlefield. I think that's a completely reasonable thing to say at this point, because as time's gone by, it seems like the medium tanks have become more and more like just the ultimate choice. Because why would you pick a vehicle that cannot maintain its role in the battle after the first 5 minutes? But yeah, you could argue this is just all a big cope from a guy who was a heavy tank main, but is trying to adapt to the modern playstyle of the game. So yeah, hopefully you enjoyed this video. Hopefully it wasn't too ranty. I probably should have, well, written down a bit more about what I wanted to say in this here beforehand, so it's a bit more structured. But, well, it's first video in multiple years, so I guess we'll see how things go. This is no like guarantee that I'll be returned to World of Tanks long term, but it's just kind of a case of wanting to just talk about the current state of the game from the few days I've played, because it seems like a lot of the old problems are still there, but Wargaming are trying to sort of avoid them without actually addressing them, which is, in my opinion, kind of unfortunate. But we'll see how things go. I'll give it a chance, and if I don't like it, then I guess that will be me back into World of Tanks retirement, if if that makes sense. But yeah, have a good one.